Aftercare After Dark is intended for mature audiences. If you're under the age of 18, we would ask you to leave this broadcast immediately and patiently await your formal invite to the grown folks table. We sometimes discuss topics that can be triggering for some. Please refer to the show's notes for episode-specific trigger warnings and resources. Thank you for listening.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Aftercare After Dark. My name is Miss G.
And I'm Yolanda. We're two sisters helping each other navigate these kink streets. Aftercare is time spent communicating and taking care of your partner after sex and or play. But who does this vital work when you're single? We are here for each other and those of you who are also exploring.
I think tonight's just a chill night to catch up with each other and share story time. What's your January?
You know what my January was. It was sadness and tears. In December, I got dumped, and that was a shock. So I was in shock for a couple of weeks, and then there was the holidays, and then it was darkness and gloom. The golden thing about this is that I'm relieved I can actually catch feelings. I caught feelings. I caught feelings. They were deep. I was hurt. My feelings were hurt. It came as a shock. We're going to talk in detail about the whole episode in the future. But I had a budding relationship that lasted for 7 weeks, and then it was over. I got dumped and it was hard. And sitting with those feelings was difficult for me. It was a new sensation. I didn't know what to do with myself. I had conversations with you. I had conversations with my therapist. I relied on my circle to talk through this. And it was really just like, I missed them. I wanted them to be around. I enjoyed seeing them. I looked forward to seeing them. And this is a new sensation. This is my first time dating officially. We were just getting to know each other, getting to explore, and there's regret there. I didn't get to do things I wanted to do that we discussed. There's mourning what you had and the qualities of this person. There were things about them that I really like. And also the future. We made plans to do a whole bunch of things. I was looking forward to that too. It wasn't future faking. These were attainable things. These were things that we taking steps toward, at least on my part. And what I gathered from this individual, it wasn't something unattainable or fantasy. That hurt. And I spent time licking my wounds. I wasn't on the sites. I wasn't flirting. I wasn't going out. It wasn't something I could just brush off. I've been dumped before. I got dumped weeks before that, and I was fine. I was fine because I didn't have feelings for this individual. So I was actually kind of relieved that it ended. It ended abruptly, and it was clean. It was very, very clean. I didn't give another thought about it. This hurt. This got to my fifis, but I'm relieved to know that I do. So there was that. So that was January. So how was your January?
Fun. Obviously, we went through December and I got dumped. I got dumped. And we'll talk about it another time. It took some time to grieve. I had my feelings hurt for different reasons. I didn't have romantic feelings towards this person, but I very much assumed that he was a friend, that he was a genuine friend to me. And so that also like triggered a little bit of like betrayal wounds in there as well too. I got hurt and it's okay. Just like we did, we leaned on each other. We talked through things. You got to see what that looked like on my end. And then January has been fun. I've been navigating very early stages of a couple polyamory situation, my play couple. We just entered a play partnership with each other. And so we're still very much in the early stages of navigating that. So when we say like early stages, what does that look like? Sitting down and having a conversation and laying in expectations and just getting clear on what role we are to each other. I loved that. I loved that I was able to have that conversation and be vulnerable with my couple. I adore them. They are two very amazing individuals. I consider myself very fortunate to have them in my life as play partners. I feel very safe with them.
Before you go on, define play partner.
So, play is anything that I would like to engage in organically in regards to the kink world. Activities like primal wrestling, impact play, which includes spanking, paddling, whipping, flogging, all those things. And then partnership is right. What's a partnership? Partnership is mutual desire to serve each other's needs and show up for each other. So that's what play partners are to me. So I'm feeling satisfied. I met this person off a field, invited him out to a karaoke meet and greet, and they came out and took the chance and met me there. And then they asked me out on a date. The date was amazing. This person was just so very thoughtful, took the time to make reservations, showed up at my door, had flowers, picked me up. And like, again, second time meeting this person, and I felt comfortable enough to give him my address to come pick me up because he knew and he was listening. He knew that I spent a lot of time. Like I spent a lot of time on the road. And in my field profile, I also put down that I crave the desire to and the freedom to be soft and feminine around truly masculine protectors and providers. And he took note of that. He took note of that and showed up for me in this manner. If I felt any way off in shape or form with this person, I would not have good enough to give them my address, but they were very service oriented. You could feel when someone is coming into the space or getting to know you with a hidden agenda. I can't really put it to word, but you could feel when somebody's coming to you with certain expectations. I didn't feel that at all with this person. They very much just sat back and they listened. They let me finish my sentences, and you're understanding how rare this is becoming. The active listening part was incredibly attractive to me, and that's crazy because active listening is just your bare minimum, right? Introduce this person to Primal Night at one of our play spaces and dungeons here locally. Primal Night focuses on primal play, and primal play refers to the animalistic nature in us. So I identify as primal in the kink world. My top persona is lioness. My sub bottom persona is kitten. Primal play can also include puppy play. There's a lot of kittens in the space. Wolf and bears. Those are examples of primal characters in the space as well too. So introduce this person to the Primal Night. Sprained my neck. I had a mild neck sprain because I wrestled somebody else before this person. And then when I got the chance to hit the mat with this person, they were strong. They were very strong. And I'm pretty strong. I adored it because this person was careful not to let me overpower them, but at the same time was very conscientious that they were still very much stronger than me. They definitely was mindful of their strength. The person before me threw me over her shoulder and face slammed me on the mat after I had specifically told her that I was struggling with a migraine. And so that really peeved me off. It resulted in a mild neck sprain that I'm still recovering from today. So I'm probably about 99% recovered, but I do get random little shooting pains. So I'm not happy about that, but it is what it is. These things happen. These are risks that occur when we're engaging in intense activities. I was able to have a conversation with her and have aftercare. She was incredibly sweet and very apologetic. She door dashed me Tylenol and
No, that's sweet.
door dashed me Tylenol, Snickers, and Mountain Dew because I told her that I loved Snickers and Mountain Dew. She lived about an hour away. She still showed up for me and she still like owned accountability for the mistake. And we were able to like talk through that. And I think that's one of my favorite parts about the kink circles and the aftercare part is the ability to have difficult conversations. And even though it's uncomfortable, what I look for in a play partner or just like in general with my interactions is your ability to hold space and your ability to actively listen. When I'm expressing something that bothers me, no matter how trivial it is, do not dismiss it. Do not diminish my experience.
That is being human, like be human to each
Mhm.
other. So many times we get into communication styles with each other based on a title or based on some kind of position. The baseline for all of your interactions is I am speaking with, I am communicating with, I am playing with, I'm being physical with another human being.
Mhm. And it's
If
respect.
that's the baseline, it quite literally, it's so hard for some people to wrap their brains around.
And I sent you a screenshot of that conversation. I was very proud of myself because I fought the urge to soothe her and assuage the guilt because I struggle with that stuff. But at the same time, I didn't want to beat her into the ground either because at the end of the day, we had a lot of fun. But I was also extremely lucky that it resulted in a mild sprain. I was afraid to go to sleep that night. As my partner date for the evening was driving me home, I could feel my neck starting to stiffen, my whole head starting to lock up. I felt the panic rising. I came home and cleaned for an hour because I was afraid to go to sleep. Anyways, slept on a frozen dog toy that night and that saved my neck the next morning. But it was scary. the fear of going to sleep was very real for me that night. And so that was Saturday night. And then the next day was Sunday. My married guy, we got to come up with a name for him. My married gentleman, Mike, came over and helped me fix some stuff because I had like a piece of the ceiling next door that I couldn't reach. And he brought a ladder, climbed up the ladder and stapled my ceiling and helped me move some furniture. And then I made him lunch after and we would like talk for 2 hours. And I adore him. I do. But he entered the kink space from the swingers lifestyle. And I don't know if we've mentioned about this. A lot of people who entered the kink space through the swinger path come into the space looking for sex. So there's a lot of deprogramming and unlearning that he has to go through. And until that happens, I don't want to with you in that way. Until that happens, I'm not in the space to be mentoring you. I don't want to teach you why what you're looking for is not matching.
There's also a fee structure for that. Listen, these periods of instruction.
It's not my job. It's not my job to teach you. He was like looking for a casual play partner. That's what he approached me with. And I'm like, define casual, define partnership. There was a point where I was like, hey, tell me what you mean by partner. What does a partnership look like and mean to you? He struggled with some words and I was like, can I tell you mine? He's like, sure, please do. And I enjoy that. The curiosity I'm finding very attractive because you and I both have experienced men who look like they're listening, who ask you questions for the sake of looking like they're making conversation, but they're not truly paying attention. They're not truly curious about you, what you think, what you really think, what your opinions are. Mike doesn't do that to me. Single father, primary caretaker, daughters, he's got neurodivergent children. So the active listening is very attractive to me. And I have to constantly fight myself to not want anything more from this man because he appeals to me on all the levels. The physicality, I love me a man's man, right? The fixers, the builders, he works with his hands. I am very attracted to men who know how to build things and who know how to fix things. And we were able to have that conversation like, what's your most valuable asset? Time. Show up and do things. Show up, spend time with me. So we're hosting a monthly munch. So a munch is like a lunch, but not really. A munch is like a meet and greet and social gathering.
In the BDSM space, there's a historical thing called the munch. That's where the munch comes from.
Okay, good. I don't know that historical thing.
Groups use munch, but it started in the kink world. It started in the kink world, I think, in California in the 70s or early 80s. People would met at a hamburger joint or a bar, ate, drank, and got to know each other, but wore their street clothes. It wasn't a play arena. It was really about building community. So that's where munches come from.
So our little friend group, John, Maggie, we have another friend, Magda. Magda is also John and Maggie's play partner and a couple other platonic play partners. We're hosting karaoke munch every first Thursday of every month. So we had our first one this past Thursday. I was late. Mike wanted to meet me there and then he showed up and I wasn't there. And I guess he must have like sat around for a few and then left. Even though I told him I was going to be there in like 20 minutes. And here's the thing. What is it about men and asking for directions and asking questions? Because if he had just shown up and asked, hey, is this the munch? He would have found the group, but he showed up, didn't see anyone he recognized, didn't know where the group was, and then just like left. And so I'm also gathering from that, like, oh, we're shy, aren't we? We've got a little bit of social anxiety, don't we? And that's okay. I'll sit on that till the next time I see him. But he's very much new to the BDSM world. I'm suspecting that he tries to portray himself as experienced, but he just admitted to me that he's never been to a munch. Next time I see him, I'm going to start asking some questions, some more pointed questions. So far, it's just been kind of like light conversation, just trying to like get to know each other, what each other's lives look like, and then just kind of like talking about our values. So we're still very fighting the urge to chase after avoidant men, unavailable men. I'm very much like recognizing that in myself. And then Eric is our non-binary friend. Adore them. And so I asked Eric to come by yesterday and help me do some chores. And he sure as hell showed up. That's where I'm getting at with men. Okay. I just need somebody to show up and do shit for me. Because it's getting warmer. This grass needs to get cut.
So I went to a munch. Yesterday. It's not my first munch, but it's my first BDSM munch. So that was interesting.
The first one was polyamory, correct?
Polyamory, right.
Okay.
which is, I think, my main interest. What does this look like? Part of the genesis for this podcast is no one talks about this from the singles perspective. Everybody loves the swingers podcast. Everybody likes the couples podcast. There are even a couple of past partners that are talking with each other, but no one's coming from this as a single. No one. I've searched. No one is coming at this from a single. So the poly munch was a bunch of couples and like me being a single, which was fine because it was informative. I learned a lot, gathered some information, was able to hold my own and give my perspective on why these things aren't working out. So that was great. I couldn't find it again. I wanted to go to another one. It's held every month, but it's not listed on Meetup. It's listed on FET, and I haven't been on FET. What did I do? I got on FET. So like now I have FET friends. I still only have the one profile picture, and I haven't filled out my profile, but I'm slow to doing these. My field profile was just a few pictures for a very long time because in this iteration, I am going about this with all of the intentions. Everything that I write, I mean, everything that I put out there, this is the way that I want you to see me because we talk values. These are the things that I value. I value the outdoors, so you see me outdoors. I value my community, so you see me with people. I like playing dress up, so you see me playing dress up and in my full drag. You see me on natural because I also have that attitude. There are times when I'm going to be barefaced. You're not going to see any of that. And that's how you're going to meet me. You're going to meet me with no makeup on. So I present what I value and what's important to me. There's no trickery. I am being my authentic self. And the same thing in my writing. I went to school for writing. That's what I do professionally. I want to be precise. So it takes me time. It takes me time. But in the meantime, I signed up for a couple of workshops because dating has been, I did have a date. I had a very nice date, but I've learned, talk about it after the second. It's the second date that is the decider.
Vibe check.
Seeing you again. Right, exactly. Are we going to get along? What do I feel after meeting you? I gauge those things. I actually think about it and I write about it. And then I decide, am I going to see you again? And then if I'm like enthusiastic, I realize that the drive has to be there for me. It's not going to work out if I'm just kind of, this person's passable. I have to be enthusiastic. I have to be interested. I am curious. I want to know more. So we're going to see each other again, but I'll have a better way of judging this individual and talking about them after that second date. The second date hasn't happened yet. In the meantime, I'm going to educational things, forming community, something that I never thought I was going to do again. I was in a rush to do this when I got to Florida. The impetus was for my daughter. Now I'm doing it for myself. A lot of things I'm doing for myself, but I am fostering and garnering community in a whole bunch of different ways. It's not just the kink stuff, but the kink stuff is more interesting to people who are listening to us. So I will tell you, there are munches everywhere. I'm going to my local munches. This was my first BDSM scene munch, and oh my goodness. It was wild. It was wild. I sat down across from a man who tried to get me to use his honorific, the theme of the night. And it was so funny because I was like, Yolanda, your imagination runs around like wild with like whatever. Maybe your interpretation of these things. The thing is, you make friends, you link up on whatever site. So I have a whole bunch of friends. We exchanged information and I got a couple of messages. Would love to talk to you without dealing with Z. I would love to talk to you without Z being there. This is coming from 3 different individuals. I was like, oh, okay, so it wasn't just me. I was the only one that voiced my.
Tell me verbatim. Tell me verbatim.
Okay, so
I love details.
like sits down. And the way the munch is set up, we just sit wherever, right? There were new people there. There were old hands there. There were intermediates, lurkers. It was 40 strong. We had a whole room, but it was 2 long tables set up. We had to add an extra table and there were 2 booths. So it was a full room. So it was lively. People were talking, introducing each other, doing their greetings. There were a lot of partnered people there. A lot of partner people there. It was sub heavy. And the person that sat across from me says, hi, I'm Z, but I go by Master or Mr. Z to those who think I'm worthy. So of course, me being me, I was like, nice to meet you, Z. Right? And he was like, so he repeats himself as if I didn't hear him the first time. So my name is Z. I am master to my slave, whatever, whatever. Mind you, you are a whole ass white man, and it is Black History Month, and you are talking to me. Kept saying this master slave thing back and forth. Now, meanwhile, I'm tempering myself because I'm new here. I want to be received well. I would like to come back. And there's a vetting process for a lot of events in my areas. It's not that you can just go to dungeons or play spaces or anything else like that. It is a vetting. People have to vouch for you. So you have to make friends, and you have to make friends relatively quickly, and you don't want to make enemies. So I'm tempering myself, right? And I'm sitting across from everything I can't stand in the lifestyle and trying not to tell this man off. So what I do, shift. It's a trick I've learned over the years. If you are confronted by someone that you can't address in the way that you want to, there's a way to shift your body to say that I'm not talking to you. Quite literally, shifted in my chair. So I'm not giving you my back, but I'm focusing my attention at an angle, right? And it's a very intentional thing. It's community, right? They are taking notice. And taking notes. We've talked about this. The way that I feel internally, like all of the butterflies and anxious, everything else like that, the way I am perceived by people are two very wildly different things. So the chatter along the side, other people gave me feedback. They're like, we want to know all about the new Dom that walked into the room. I was like, I didn't declare myself. Nobody knows what I am. But my posture and the way that I was dealing with this situation was something that people took note of, because we are sitting in a room where people are evaluating power dynamics. And there are rules, right? If someone is partnered, you do not address a sub without permission. I know the protocol. So I'm not talking to his sub. I'm not really talking to him because I find him oh so off-putting. Like giving out information. I'm a control freak. That's why I'm a dom. You want to know how I married my wife? She had 3 collar ceremonies, and I was like, nobody asked you. Like literally. And he's like, do you want to know? I met a lovely individual. We were talking, and he kept interrupting. I said, sir, I'm new here and I've met someone that I'd really like to talk to. Can you hold your thought for a couple of minutes while we get through this? The thing that we have in common is that we went to school for the same thing and we're still interested in that thing. So that's what we're talking about. Shifting, shifting back. This individual was uncomfortable. So of course, we'd want to hear your story. I was like, girl, no, we don't. You don't want to hear it because I can see it in your eyes. Now I really don't want to hear it because I'm turned off. I'm turned off by this, constantly interrupting, constantly talking, telling stories, and giving out personal information about other people who are not in the room that he has no business giving out, telling stories, giving invitations to, because I guess they have an open house in a dungeon in their house. So I heard 4 times, 3rd Wednesday of every month, they do this, whatever. I heard you the first time. I'm not coming ever. This is never going to happen. So watching an individual, one, try to commandeer an entire table of conversation, being the person that I am and knowing how to do this. Part of my skill is communication, redirecting the conversation, making space for people, asserting my will.
Asserting dominance.
Asserting dominance, yes. So asserting my will, no, sir. You have your subs here, and that's great for you, but I'm not part of that circle. We just met. This is a Wendy's. So it was interesting doing that, and also knowing that, let's say this was a different type of thing, or maybe I had been coming to these munches for 6-7 months. I would have gotten loud, and I would have told him and put him in his place. I can do that with control.
You can do that without vulgar language.
Without vulgar language, without making it over personal. I can say, sir, your opinion, your words, your presence is not wanted here. Take that to the next table. I'm not having it. But I couldn't do that. It was this play between knowing that I want to come back, right? And not wanting to piss anybody off, but also standing my ground and also learning, like just learning things. everything that is wrong in this space was encapsulated in this. It was encapsulated. The patriarchy saying that this was about control. This was not about a mutual, reciprocal, loving relationship that he's been in for the last 20 years. No, this is about browbeating and getting what you want just because you want it. There's no discipline here. There's no the intent, honoring what the culture should be and isn't always. Everything that I would say that's a bad dom. That's a bad dom. That's not even a dom. That's just a bully. That is a bully. That's a domineering man. That is an abusive man. I've seen it. I know what it looks like. I don't have any tolerance for that. That's not what these spaces are. And I met some very, very lovely people. I really did.
And the stuff that I just can't stand about that, no one else, like who's leading the group? Who's the hostess? Who's the host?
Again, it was a sub-heavy group, and the host of the group, well, one, the positioning, right? So the host of the group is at the front of the room. I'm on the other end by the wall. I have a new individual, so another first timer to the left of me, and we're trying to have a conversation about what's going on, why we're here, and all of that stuff, and introducing each other and just banter. So he's to the left of me. I'm directly across from Z, and I have 4 individuals around me that I'm interested in talking to, and we're having an exchange towards the middle of the table. Someone really thinks that they know me, and this happens to me a lot. I'm new here and I would remember you. I would remember you because of your hair. Your hair is spectacular, by the way. You're not a forgettable face. In fact, I don't really forget faces in general. Trust me, I have one of those faces. You don't know me and I don't know you, but like, nice to meet you anyway. We're doing that exchange, right? Of course, being the bad person. I wouldn't want to know this person in any capacity, not just the lifestyle, any capacity whatsoever. You are off-putting and you keep interrupting. I understand what you are used to, but we're new here. The 2 of us are new here, and we're having a conversation over here. I had to stop what I was, like trying to do this exchange. We're not talking here.
This is an A and B conversation. See your way out.
Exactly. But without being rude, trying to be gracious and trying to control the situation, right? So it was interesting. And the feedback that I got after the munch broke up, but I was still there for like an hour afterwards. Everybody wants to know who the new Dom was. Everybody wants to know who the new Dom was. I was like, I can tell y'all that. I'm still exploring. I don't know what I am.
Well, that's also the difference between someone who dominates and somebody who wants to dominate. And that's just how it is. There's presence. And I teach this all the time. You don't have to do anything to trigger insecure people. Just your presence alone. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to do anything. But just your aura and your presence alone will trigger insecure, toxic people. They're going to try to impress you. They're going to try to one-up you. They're going to try to outcompete you without you doing a single thing.
And that was part of the feedback. Don't mind Z. He felt insecure. And I was like, one, I'm not minding them, but it doesn't give you an excuse to behave that way. Like, that's a behavior that I will not tolerate.
I can't stand that.
It was a sub-heavy group. Part of it is that deference. The leaders of the group, they were co-facilitators. One was a former sub, now Dom, who had subs underneath her, but her posture was very much, there's a way to be dominant and female in a group setting that is not off-putting, and I don't think she has mastered that. I could see in flashes in one-on-one where she had a very dominant posture, but when she was talking to the group, it was very much that feminine energy, that energy that we assign as feminine, where it's indirect guidance, where it is soft power, which I value, but in a situation in which someone is trying to do A, B, and C. And also, I think a lot of times there's a deference to elder. You can be old and dumb. You can be old and wrong. You can be old and outdated in your thinking about the culture. So everything that they were asserting, Z was asserting as dominance is like having a trad wife. He said this. That's a direct quote. Yeah. No. And then it was quoting Jordan Peterson again. No, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. And I think it was that thing. I brought up some insecurity and he kept trying to bounce that off of me. And I was not having it. I was not having it. So it was an interesting night in which I met some very, very lovely people. It was great. But I ran into the thing that's very off putting. And maybe 10 years ago, I wouldn't have had the wherewithal to deal with any of it. I probably would have walked out because I would have been disgusted and upset. My experiences now, I temper all of them. It was very interesting to see the group dynamic. It was a sub heavy group. If there were a few more dominants in the room, I don't think he would have tried it. And that well of insecurity, he was trying to gain my approval, to be perfectly honest. He wanted me to like him. And the harder he tried, the worse it became.
Listen,
so he was
it always goes back to the whole people are intrigued by the powerful woman, but a lot of them cannot stand the reality of her.
because I think they think we're putting it on. I think that's what it is. It's a persona. Eventually, it's going to drop away. I am what I am, and I said what I said. But and also maybe all of the things that I carry with me into a room, they're not as integral to who I am as I think they am. They're not the truth. The truth is that I am confident, and that comes out. And the truth is, I have hard lines. I won't call myself a dom yet, but I will say that the way that I carry myself, the leadership that comes through, regardless of what I say, like 4 or 5 words. And I didn't talk a lot. I did a lot of listening to other people because I'm new here. I want to learn. This is inquiry. I am curious too. I want to learn. I want to get to know the people there. So there's a intellectual curiosity, but there's also emotional and connection based curiosity. Can I be in community? What does that mean for me? So the feedback that I got at the end, like there's a female dom in the room. Like the doms were men. Most of them were white men of a certain age. I would say between 55 and 65. The age range for the women ran from relatively young. I would say the youngest person there was 21, 22 to there was a woman there in her 70s. There was a large age range for the women or the femme identifying people in the room and different ethnicities. The men in the room were predominantly middle-aged white guys, and most of them identified as stuff. So it was very interesting. There was a discussion about like who was the best Star Trek captain. Everybody's like Kirk, and I was like, yeah, that says a lot about y'all. So I'm doing the little mental checklist of commonalities in these people based on who's in the room and what they're doing. So there were a lot of identifying women's subs, a couple of switches, and a lot of male doms. There was an imbalance in the room. You could feel it. And the variable, I was there. And the presentation and my attitude for the night was very dominant.
The best part of the doms, right? We call them the true doms and the fake doms. The people who are truly dominant and who carry themselves as dominants, they're not loud. They're quiet. They listen. They listen to others. They give each other space to speak. They're curious about learning other people, and they do not call themselves doms. That's just how that goes. They don't call themselves that.
I'm loath to do that. So when we were doing introductions, I said exploring. That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm exploring. I was asked a question because we were hooking up on FetLife. They're like, what does verse mean? Some people didn't know. We got into a good conversation. I got a switch who hardly identified as a switch. Some people think it's splitting hairs, but there is a difference between a verse and a switch. And verses, they take a reactive position to their partners. They figure out what's going on, and then their dominance or submissiveness is malleable. Like where it switches, dominance or submission is kind of static. I can change mid-scene, depending on what the energy is. We were talking about that and saying it out loud, and I was like, oh, this is the behavior, right? So confirming what I already believed about myself externally always helps. There were so many interesting conversations. I just happened to sit directly across from someone who wanted my attention and could not get it. And
sounds like he was a baby. He sounds like a brat.
The words out of their mouths was, I'm a dom, I'm a control freak. I couldn't get myself to come down on one knee to propose. So I told my slave that I was going to do X, Y, and Z. And I've had 7 slaves in the past. And this slave is here and doing this with this person. Whenever he got shut down, he kind of like doubled down on some nonsense. And there's no one here in authority to say, because he's the authority. He's 25. He's been in the lifestyle for 25 years. Like, just like the insistence that he knows what he's talking about. And it's just like, and then like just weird things. I think I'm dipping into my sociopathic era, like some weird nonsense.
Oh, you mean you're not already a sociopath? We have a party on February 17th. She's going to be there. I'm going to get my pound of flesh because I am going to ask her partners, because she's got handlers, for an impact scene. And I'm going to teach and show these people what I do.
So we talked about that too. I need to take an impact class. But you told me you were going to help me with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. My fear, right? My fear. I am stronger than I look, like way stronger than I look. I carry a lot of muscle anyway, but like it's strong. Okay. In for the culture, I have strong.
Yeah.
So
people of color, we're just dense. We're dense.
Right. I am afraid of that type of play because I don't want to hurt anybody.
And I'll teach you how to negotiate a scene, how to ask the right questions.
But then there's also like the physics of it. Like, of course, me being me because I was listening, right? On the air, somewhere across from me, somebody was talking about a flogging session that went wrong. The person stood too close while flogging. The impact was too hard, not because they didn't know their own strength, but because there's a distance thing, there's a physics thing, like the arc of it coming down. I was fascinated.
I have a color scale and a number scale,
Okay.
and that's how I go off of. So number pain scale, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 being the worst. What number are you? And then color, red, green, yellow. Yellow is pause or pass, and then green is good to go. Obviously, red is bad. So one of the biggest mood breakers in a scene is when a top is asking, how are you feeling to the sub? And you're like, oh my God, just go harder. And it like kind of fucks with the headspace, right? I don't know what it is, but for some reason, some subs think that it makes you less of a dom when you have to like ask after the other person's well-being. So for me, it's a way to take the emotion out of it, to spit out a color. You don't have to think, right? So as I'm going, I'm like, number, tell me when you're above a 5, right? When you start getting up to a 6, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever. That's when I want to know. I don't care if you're 5 below. But if I'm unsure, I'll just go with the session like number 5, color, yellow.
All right. So you're taking the temperature without
breaking character, breaking scene.
Maintaining the mood, of course, is super important, but also being safe and sane and consent.
And even just like the way that I do it, I'm like, number.
Yeah. Well, like, listen.
Number.
Listen. Listen. My heart like went a little pitter patter. I was like, okay. Like, so, that sounds hot. Taking notes. But we've talked about this as well. There's a way to make a game. What we don't talk about when we're in a dominant position or topping position, there are tricks that you can do. I had a situation with someone that I was with. I made a game out of it. Mm-hmm. Everybody had so much fun. Part of the pleasure of this is using your creativity, is using the brain that you have to do something.
And it's hot.
It's super hot. It's super hot.
And this just goes to show, I don't know how it happened, but I know how it happened. But like, I'm so incredibly confident in myself, which is such a far cry from who I was when you met me, and still a far cry compared to who I was in 2014.
Oh, I just want to say, I didn't think you lacked confidence when I met you. This is the divide between how we're feeling internally, right? And what the world sees of us. And I think that there, we can go into the psychology of that and the eldest daughter thing, but there is this wild difference because I saw you as a dom before I had the language for being a dom, but you were a leader. I saw that with your relationship with Danny. I saw that with you and your presence in the room. So what you were feeling was turmoil. What you were portraying was control. I'm just telling you that because that was my impression of it.
Thank you. When I first started working, doing what I do, I used to stay up all night. I wouldn't sleep because I was so anxious. I would like practice my lectures during the drive. I don't do that shit anymore. I don't do that stuff anymore. Like, I just show up, I listen to what they tell me. I listen to the problems that they tell me. I observe what they're doing. And then I just like go from there. And it was the same thing when I had my last scene with George. I had no plan. absolutely no plan. I just knew what he wanted to happen and I knew what I wanted to happen. When we first started, he was just like completely naked and cuddling. I was like, "Are you cold?" "Yeah, good." Jumping jacks.
I love our cult, right? Like when in doubt, we know exactly how to behave because we went through it.
As he was done, he was like
Or
breathing heavy.
you
I was
roll
like,
your eyes, you say, "Oh God, okay, pray." I got you. I got you.
he stood up after his mountain climbers and shit like that. He was like breathing heavy. I was like, "You still cold?" "No." "Good. Go lay down. Go lay the fuck down." I love that. And I just like, I love it. Even though it's not me and my entirety, it's still a very large part of like that creativity. It's fun. It's a mind fuck. I love that part of it. The complete mind fuck. I listen. I pay attention for the sake of trying to figure out what makes you tick and how to use it against you and how to use it to my advantage, to your advantage, and all that stuff. So I'm going to be doing that with the lady who sprained my neck at the party. We're going to have ourselves an impact session. So one of my things is like, we have these stories that we tell ourselves. We've mentioned this before. And a lot of these stories, we call them narratives, are often false narratives because they were born out of like extremely painful, extremely stressful, extremely like high emotional states, right? That's why our memories, or the memories that are deeply ingrained in us, are associated with a strong level of emotion. It could be joy, deep sadness, anger, anxiety, confusion, whatever, so forth. And so when we went through this conversation, I sent you a very small screenshot of my part, but she came out with hers as well too. Part of my thing when I go, I work my bottom up to their, so I call it edge, but like up there, high up there. And then once I get there, confess. Like I make them confess the truth. And I'm just like listening while they're doing that. And then once they tell me their truth, kind of like how you've been doing for me, we need to change that story. I need you to change that thought pattern. And so once you tell me your truth, even if it's a false narrative or whatever, it's still your truth, right? I'm going to make you repeat after me, and I'm going to beat it into you. And this is the behavior modification of what I do for work being translated into the kink space. A lot of us are just walking around with all these like false narratives, all these stories and truths that we tell ourselves that were born out of high stressful and very painful situations. And I'm very much understanding that I'm the fixer and I'm the healer, I guess. And this is how I get to do that in a way that works for people and works for me. Speaking of which, full disclosure, we already talked about the strays, right? Collecting strays.
Don't do it. Don't say it. Don't say it. Listen, we're not about community service here. I told you this. I told you this.
So yeah, I have a friend. Let's call them Angel. Angel's hitting up on some hard times, and I have a spare bedroom.
No. No, did we not talk about this? You don't have a spare bedroom. I'm coming in a month. Sorry. Okay, you don't have a spare bedroom. You need to take it back. Take it back. Because I don't even know who this Angel is. And we've been talking. We've talked almost every day for the last week. Because you're supposed to tell me these things. And this is the first time I'm hearing about it. That's one. And two, no.
This only happened yesterday.
No.
It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. Yes. So he'll be here on Sunday.
No. No, he's not. No, seriously, you got to take it back. And you're fine because you just met this person, right? Your first meeting was yesterday?
No. He's a friend. He's a close friend. So he's not a deadbeat, Army veteran, gay. My gay brother, very much the type of person who doesn't know how to be by himself. So it's okay. We'll work through it.
No, you won't. I'm telling you this. Listen. No, this is not going to end well. I know what your disposition is. I know where you are right now. I don't know this person, but adding someone to your very full plate. You're building community, which I'm here for that, because that's a romantic, that is a want, that is a wish, that's a desire, and also a need of that. And it's going to fulfill you. This is something that is fulfilling a need that you have. Being part of community, like we all need that. That's on the list of needs, right? You're finding your people. That's amazing. It's mutually beneficial. That's amazing. You're doing the negotiation. That is amazing. Just because someone's in trouble does not mean that you're the one to help them, because you have your business, you have your family, and you have these new people, and you have me as well, right? Because we've made a commitment to each other. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to hold you to that as well. It's too much.
I know.
You cannot add
I
another
know.
thing into it because we talked about this. We took L's in December.
Uh-huh.
We both
Uh-huh.
took L's in December.
L's
Big
and
L's.
lows.
Right. Because we've had pains, because we're still navigating from very old hurts and old wounds. Listen, those are scabbed over, they're not healed. Okay. We have that. So we have that on our own, right? We're in our own headspace without anybody else. We both have jobs. We have this new dating thing that we're doing. We have this exchange that we are doing. You have your business, which is highly personal, and you have to use a lot of every skill that you have intellectually and emotionally and physically to maintain that business. What if that says you have space for the stress of having another person in your house?
I don't. You're right. You're right. And I regretted it as soon as I said yes. And it's been sitting on me all day.
We
Brought
had
it
a
forth.
difficult discussion earlier today. You can have another difficult situation saying, hey, I gave it some thought. There are tons of resources out there for veterans. You can direct them towards those resources.
Yep. And I'll give him a call or a text here later because I'm over here calling him a close friend. And yet when I call him and when I text him, he fucking does not ever get back to me. The only time he ever gets back to me is when he needs something. Yeah, no, I get it.
I'll be on you. I will be on you. Okay. And I'm coming up there too. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry. I'm going to hold you to it. No, this is Big Sister taking care of you. It's hard to say no to people. You can be there, you can listen. You have that, but you do not have it. You do not have it to give to have another person in your space right now. You just don't. And you can hate me tomorrow. You can hate me tomorrow. I'm telling you, that is an evaluation. You don't have it. You have good things happening for you. You have a lot of stress. You have healing that you need to do, and you have commitments. Adding another person who is taking ain't it. There's the impulse to caretake because that's what we do. That's what we do, right? No, no. And also, and I'm going to call you on this too, because I'm going to ask you the question, is it easier to direct that energy outward when you have work to do in here?
I think it's also the guilt of making him the offer in the first place because I made him the offer 2 weeks ago or a week ago and then like saying yes and now having to change my mind. You're allowed to change your mind because I'm not 100% in this. It's again that fixer. Oh, you have a problem. Let me provide you a solution at the expense of myself.
Yeah, no, there are resources for them. There are support systems. There are social workers that are dedicated at the VA to helping out vets, especially if they're gay and they identify as such. He can get help there. He can really just go to the VA. They have a coordinator. They have a legitimate
It's
LGBTQIA.
fine. I say the same thing.
Right?
The legitimate qua.
They have a coordinator. There is a dedicated person at every VA that will help give him the resource, but there are professionals who are paid, who are compensated to take care of that particular problem, not yours. You can listen, you can be there, but giving up your time, your energy, your food, your bills, all of that, just because someone has a sad story and now you're telling me they have not been reciprocal. This isn't family or a close friend. This is a user. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry. Okay, I'm not sorry. Never mind. we're gonna lean into the dom. Like, no, I'm not sorry. F that. F that. I'm done. I'm done. Okay. And
It's
I will
fine.
hold you
It's
accountable.
fine. I knew it because
Yes.
as soon as I said it, I was like, oh, here we go again. What's it like for you watching this from me?
One, it's not a judgment thing. Don't ever think it is because I've been there. How do you think I ended up in Florida? Because I was just saying yes to the match. I was saying yes to the match all the time. I was taking care of people who were not taking care of me. It was not reciprocal. I was becoming a drudge and then I was becoming bitter. And I was like, oh, this is how you get old. This is how you start dying. Like I didn't want to. I was in my 30s. I was in my early 30s. I had a young child. I was just divorced. That was painful. And I was caretaking for 6 sets of adults. Every time it snowed, I was shoveling. Every time somebody needed food, I was traveling between Connecticut and the city doing that. Anytime someone needed childcare, I was doing that too. And I had a full-time job and I was going to school and I was hurting. Hurting. And in some ways, it was easier to do all of the things and then come home mad than dealing with the pain of what I was going through. So it's not a judgment. I've been there. I've been there. It's empathy. If someone had cared enough for me to say, stop, I'm hoping that I was open enough to listen. You're not being a bad friend. You're not being a bad person. You said a thing impulsively without considering all of the things. Now you have the knowledge. You have the knowledge. I listed out all of the reasons why this is a bad idea. And sometimes we need an outside voice to say that. So it's not judgment. No, I am saying what I'm saying because I was. And I had to put a hard stop to it. And my biggest fear was that, oh, I'm moving out on my own. I'm buying my house and taking my daughter. Like, I'm doing all of these things. Someone's going to die if I'm not here. I left. I built my life in Florida. You know what happened? All of these adults were fine. No one died. No one died. Everybody was fine. Everybody became resourceful. Everybody figured it out. I didn't have to do any runs back up to New York or Connecticut or anywhere to take care of anybody. You know why? Because everybody figured it out. I was convenient and I was easy and I was permissive. It was easier dealing with their BS and being mad about that than the very real things that were going on with me. So part of it was I was being taken advantage of, and part of it was I wasn't doing the work that I needed to do to heal. I've been where you are. That's why I say what I say. It's never going to be a judgment. It sounds harsh, but you don't have it. You don't have it to give to this other individual.
And you're right.
Oh, wow. That took a turn. That took a turn. Yeah, the theme is community. So I want to reach out to everybody and say, Miss G is building her community. I am building my community. How are you building your community? That's the query. Talk to us.
And that wraps up our episode for tonight. Thank you, everyone, for listening in. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. Good night.